We'd like to get started with our webinar for today. Welcome everyone to today's Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation webinar. You are here for the Mechanical and Plumbing Part 1. This is the first part of the Mechanical and Plumbing, which is part of the Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation webinar series. For your use, we've uploaded some handouts. We've uploaded the presentation in a PDF format today. So if you go to that go-to toolbox on the right-hand side of your screen, under handouts, you'll find this presentation in PDF format. You'll find the tips from the experts, a guide for working on projects under OSHPD's jurisdiction. And if you've missed the first presentations or any other presentations, feel free to email us at our Inspection Services Unit email, which is oshpd.fddisu@oshpd.ca.gov. You are here for roughly a 30-minute presentation, which will allow us to field your questions. And since we'll be presenting in an open mic format, we'll go ahead and pause throughout the presentation to answer your questions. So if you do have a question, please feel free to raise your hand using the go-to raise your hand feature next to your name. We will then unmute you so you can unmute yourself and speak into your microphone so we can have a discussion. Again, we'll try to answer all of your questions, but if we don't get to your question or have to pass on a couple, if we're running out of time, we'll go ahead and send your email address, send that question to the email address that I shared with you, which is oshpd.fddisu@oshpd.ca.gov. If you experience transmission difficulties, go ahead and log off and then log back in using the login information that GoTo sent you. And we will do the same if we experience transmission difficulties on our end. So for today, we have Monica Colosi. She is a compliance officer with the Inspection Services Unit. And we also have Larry Enright, which is a senior mechanical engineer, part of OSHPD's team as well. And he will be answering some of the more technical questions. So Monica, if you're there, the presentation is all yours.
Thank you, Cesar, and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the plan reading webinar. So like Cesar said, today we will go through the mechanical and plumbing part 1, and Thursday will be the part 2. Each week we have different discipline with the different parts. So part 1 on Tuesday, part 2 on Thursday. The remaining webinars that we're going to have per discipline will be electrical next week, and the following week, fire life safety. That being said, let's start with mechanical and plumbing. The mechanical and plumbing discipline has 2 parts of the exam, the code part and the plans. The code portion for Class A will have 10 questions, for Class B will have 12 questions. A sample that is not included in the actual exam about code for mechanical question reads, in fuel gas piping, per pressure testing and inspection, the minimum test pressure and test duration for a hospital with fuel gas piping and house pressure should be no less than, and there are 4 options for answering. But how are you going to look for the response? Unless you know right away. In the mechanical code, there is a list of chapters, like any other discipline. In the chapter, there is the fuel gas piping, which is chapter 13, as you can see, maybe right now probably is tiny on your screen, is highlighted in yellow, and that is the chapter 13. So what would you need to do? You will go to the chapter 13. The question is about the test pressure. So you will look to the test pressure section, which is 13.3. You will read, you will go through, and has been highlighted the portion that says no less than 10 psi, and in no case less than 15 minutes. Therefore, the right answer will be C. Is anybody having any question for this? Raise the hand if you need.
Yes, thank you, Monica. So again, we want to go ahead and encourage discussion. This is intended to be an open forum, and we want to be able to field your questions. So if you see the little hand next to your name, feel free to click that, which will allow us to notice you and notice that your hand is raised and allow you to allow us to unmute you so you can unmute yourself and then ask your question. So with that, Alexander, we see you have your hand up, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mic if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I caught the tail end of that slide. You said for the Class B, there's going to be 12 code questions for MEP, and then I missed the part where it said how many plan questions for MEP.
We will go for the plan question, and it will be the next slide. So right now we are going through the.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was all I had.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, and I'm going to go ahead and unmute Benjamin. If you would like to unmute yourself, that'd be great. So we'd like to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I was just curious. So mechanical and plumbing, are they combined?
Yes.
Okay, so then my question would be, so as far as the test, I know that, is it going to be split up? Like, are we going to have to navigate like one question mechanical, one question plumbing? Or is it going to be split up like, 5 mechanical, 5 plumbing?
You will have.
Just for navigational purposes.
Say it again?
Just for navigating purposes, ma'am. Thank you.
You will have the opportunity. It will be clarified that is mechanical or is plumbing. So you will have no wondering for sure.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I'm just thinking like, am I going to be jumping from book to book, or am I going to be like, the beginning portion is primarily going to be mechanical and then the later portion plumbing, or am I going to have both books set up like question 1 mechanical, question 2 plumbing, question 3 mechanical?
If I can add to what Monica said, the questions have been broken up into different trades. So as opposed to what some have experienced in the past, that you'll have questions 1, 2, and 3. One will be electrical, one will be mechanical, one will be structural. It's not like that anymore. What we've done is we've separated the questions into trades. So you have a section on mechanical, you have another section on electrical, etc.
Let me interject this person's question. So this is DSC James Pond speaking.
Yes, sir.
Keep in mind that plumbing is not a practice engineering, right? So that's why it's belong to mechanical. And
Yes,
also,
sir.
when you work on OSHPD projects, medical gas, it is part of plumbing.
Yes,
and
sir.
we will consider try to, I guess, organize all the mechanical questions together, not to, I guess, have the mechanical and plumbing questions, I guess, randomly. So you have to go back and forth. We will consider that. However, you do have a point, and at times you might have to go through different section of the codes or reference standards, but it will be very clear if it's a mechanical questions or plumbing questions. And for plans, you just need to navigate at times, for plumbing questions, you might have to navigate through, let's say, architecture drawings to begin with, right? So,
yes, sir.
For code questions, I get your points, so we will consider that.
I appreciate it. I mean, you guys made it easier, virtually, but when we had to use the physical books, bouncing from mechanical to plumbing, it just makes it easier to navigate. It's a little more organized. I appreciate the help. Thank you guys so much.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. Again, thank you for raising your hand, those that did. We'd like to go on to the next example, Monica, and then feel free to raise your hand if you have more questions. So we'll be keeping an eye out as to those who are clicking that little hand icon. So Monica, all yours.
Thank you, Cesar. So continuing and to answer to the first question, for the plan, Class A will have 13 questions and Class B 9 questions. Again, is a mix between mechanical and plumbing, so will be the overall will be 13 questions for Class A and 9 questions for Class B. So before to go to the examples for the plan reading, we want to share, like we did in the prior webinar, a few things. So if you participated to the prior webinar, what we are going to say for a few slides, you are hearing again. If you didn't participate, you will hear for the first time. The reason of this type of webinar is to guide you to go through the right process for the exam. So let's analyze the question with the correct responses, how to read them, how to interpret the questions, how to arrive to the response. Sometimes the approach is easy and sometimes it's not, like in the actual construction process. Remember, the plans are not perfect. Therefore, not even the plans that we are going to have for your exam will be perfect because don't exist the perfect plans. And this is why RFIs are issued during construction, right? What do approved construction document content? They have the original approved set, they have RFIs, no material alteration change, material alteration change. The information can be anywhere in the drawing, but usually some of the general information of the project may appear in drawings on the title sheets, and that some of the specific information will be contained in drawings like details, schedules. This is an example how a table of contents is. You can see here the different discipline. This is, of course, in the overall, what could be in the different categories and what you can have in a set of plan of document. You may have all of them or you may have few, depends the scope of the project. Each discipline contains general information like symbol legend, abbreviation, general notes specific for that discipline. They have also plans, elevation, sections. Those are also a different scale of drawings. Details, scheduling, diagrams, sometimes even 3D drawings if is necessary. In the example that we're going to show you, you can see the different discipline. The main one is the cover page, the general note, and the UL assembly. Sometimes the UL assembly are included into the specific discipline and sometimes not. Sometimes they are into the general drawings. So, most important of everything, be flexible to navigate through the set of drawings because not always a specific information is where your thinking is to be. And so we don't want, first of all, that you give up and continue to be flexible and going through the drawings in order to find that specific information. Today we are going through the mechanical and plumbing discipline. Therefore, we are going to show you what are the disciplines that are relevant in order to answer to the plan reading questions for the mechanical and the plumbing portion. The mechanical and plumbing relevant drawings are, of course, under the mechanical and plumbing discipline. Under those disciplines, you can find schedules, you can find tables, floor plans, enlarged plans, sections, details. And also, you might need to look into the seismic restraint discipline as well. So again, you need to be flexible. Something that would like to remind you is that you need to look in the drawing. You need to look into the notes, keywords, typical details, general notes. But most important, you need to look sometimes all the discipline because to make a good project, all the discipline needs to talk to each other. This means, again, that sometimes some information that you might think is, in this case, in the mechanical and plumbing plans, are not there, so you need to look maybe in other discipline. So let's go with the first example. We will go through, we will read the question, we will arrive to the answer, and then we will stop. If you have a question, raise your hand, and we will go through for the clarification example after example. So the first question reads, what is the inlet pressure to the single stage pressure reducing station? So where do you think you should look at? There is a good chance that the information is in the detail drawing. So go to the HVAC detail. And if you don't know where the HVAC detail is, go to the master index sheets. And from there, you will go through the mechanical drawing and you will see where is the HVAC details. In this case, it is M6.01. Once you find the detail, look into it. There is the schedule. And on this schedule, you can find the PSI information, which it is 60, and that will be the answer. That being said, if there is any question, raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Monica, for that. Well, I want to encourage discussion, so feel free to raise your hand. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and kind of cruise through the list of names to see if anyone has lifted up their hand or raised their hand using that little icon next to your name. I do see a hand from Brian. So Brian, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you'd like to unmute yourself, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. So I think my question on this particular question is with respect to, this is a steam system in this particular case, but there's natural gas systems that would have PRVs. There's, hydronic systems might have PRVs. Maybe in this set of plans, there's only one type of PRV, but I just kind of wanted to, ask that question is how did you know that we're talking steam here?
So is that, Larry, if you're there, is that something that maybe you can help out with, Larry?
Yeah, I'm here. So I guess just back to the question, it was referring back to this detail here, the single stage. So for this particular plan set, it looks like this would be the most applicable reasoning. But, I guess if there's more pressure PRVs in the plan set, then they would need to specify whether it's going to be a gas or water or steam type PRV.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Brian. Bradley, we see you have your hand up. I'd like to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Bradley.
Yeah, I was noticing on the drawing index, sheet M601 is not referring to the details page. It's actually referring to HVAC new construction second floor part A. So with the drawings we're going to have on the test, are they going to be a little more clear? So I mean, this one doesn't have bookmarks, or so it's kind of hard. It takes a while to click through all the pages and stuff, and if the page doesn't match the call out, it's kind of hard to find it.
The plans that you are going to have for the exam will be, of course, different than this one, and will be more clear. Will be also newer drawings, so it will be easier basically to look, to read, and yes, the reference would be accurate.
Great, thank you for that. Let me look through the list of names one more time to see if anyone else has raised their hand. So again, feel free to raise your hand using that little icon, and if I don't see any more names, we can go on to the next example. So Monica, I don't see any more hands, so if you'd like to, go ahead and proceed with the presentation.
Okay, so let's go to example number 2. And it reads, the source valve for the nitrogen system is located in room, and there will be a list of rooms. So always remember to start your research from the index of drawings that will be accurate for the exam. So first, you need to look into the symbol used for the nitrogen line and where you can find it. Where the legend could it be? In this case, in the P0.01. You find the medical gas line legend, and you find the nitrogen line with the symbol, which is something that you need in order to answer to the question.
Okay, Monica. Would you mind repeating that? I think the audio was a little.
Yeah, of course.
Can you repeat that?
Of course. So what you need to do is to look the line. How is the symbol for the nitrogen line? In this case, the drawing is P0.01, where there is the medical gas legend. In the medical gas legend, which one you can see on the left of the screen, there is highlighted in yellow the nitrogen. That is the symbol, the line N2 and the line. That is the symbol for the nitrogen, okay? Then you need to think where the location would be. So typically, it is in the med gas room. but where the med gas room is. Usually it's not easy to find in plumbing drawings because the drawings might be way too busy with other information. So how can you find the number for med gas room? Use different floor plans, and this is why you need to be flexible. Where can you find which floor plan you can use? Whichever you want. In this case, we are using the life safety plan. And we say that life safety plan is ideal because there is less information, so you can read better the name of the room and the room number. Once you identify the med gas room, go finally to the plumbing drawing. And look for the room, look for the nitrogen, and you will look for the nitrogen source valve. And that is the answer. So will be 1C38 confirmed. Raise hand if you have a question. Is the connection okay? Because I'm not hearing anybody.
Yes, thank you, Monica. Again, we want to go ahead and encourage your discussion and making sure that you're aware that you can raise your hand so we can unmute you and you can unmute yourself. The questions so far have been great, and we want to keep that discussion going and encourage that discussion. But also reminder that if you have a question that kind of comes to mind after the webinar is over, you can always use that email address that we provided for you at the beginning of the presentation, which is oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. Again, that's oshpd.fdd.isu@oshpod.ca.gov. So, Brian, I see your hand up, so I'd like to go ahead and unmute you, and if you can unmute yourself, Brian.
Hi, I just wanted to double check. I'm not seeing where it says source valve, so being that I don't know a lot about this type of system, would I just assume that that's the end of the line, so that's the source valve?
Yes, source means the end of the line.
Okay, but there's no special symbol for source valve, and I'm not missing where it says source valve or anything like that?
No, so basically you will, and this is why the line, the symbol is necessary for you to see. So is basically knowledge that nitrogen line should be in the med gas plan. So once that you go there, you just follow the line, the symbol, and you will arrive to the manifold nitrogen. Okay.
And I guess worst case, if I had to sort it out, I could look at all these room numbers and see that one of them is a med gas room and go with that one.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And this is why here, for example, if you know there is med gas, but how can you find them? You see how small the name of the room is? It's very difficult to figure it out.
Yeah,
and
impossible.
So this is why we recommend go to any other floor plan in order to read where the med gas is. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Brian, for the question. Glenn, I see you have your hand up. I'd like to go ahead and unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, Glenn.
Yeah, I was kind of referring back to the previous comment there. I didn't see that granted, I'm on a tablet today because of where I'm at, but you cannot see the room number on there. So that was where I was at too.
Yeah, so Monica brings up a good point, and thank you for the questions. That if you don't see the answer on a specific set of pages or sheet numbers, go ahead and cross-reference, the floor plans, and that'll possibly and hopefully give you more information that you can use. So thank you, Glenn, for that. Alexander, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. If you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was just noticing that in the 2019 California Plumbing Code that the adoption matrix at the beginning of the chapter says that it only adopts section 1304.1.2, so that basically refers you to NFPA 99. Is that the reference standard that we're going to primarily be focusing on as far as the code questions for med gas questions?
For the code, you are going to use the 2019 code. For the plans, you will read in the plans what is the year of the plans.
Right, I understand that, but we're using 2019 California code, and the California code, especially pertaining to OSHPD, doesn't adopt the entire chapter. So at the matrix table, it says that the 2019 pertaining to OSHPD is only adopting 1304.1.2, and that takes you to the NFPA 99 reference standard. So basically what I'm trying to understand is for med gas questions, plumbing questions, and the like, are we going to be focusing on what the matrix, the adoption matrix is for this particular code cycle?
This is James, and that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
For working on OSHPD projects, that's the key element, right? For structural, it's very easy because everybody knows it's the amended chapters, the 8 chapters that OSHPD adopts. However, for other codes, that's where you have to start to begin with, right? The adoption tables. For medical gas, it is always the NFPA, and it's only that specific chapter that we adopt. So that's where you have to go through the NFPA standard to find the requirements for medical gas. And for the 2019, we are adopting to a newer standard, and that's another key element that is not always the most current standard that the code adopts to, because the code is just like a law, right? It has to be set in stone. So at a specific time, we have to select something to set in stone or carve in stone, and that's why the codes and reference standards are, sometimes they are not the same years, because, you know, it depends on when these standards are published and when the codes will be published. So you have to always make sure that you have the correct reference standards for the code cycles that you are working on that specific project. And that's what it's always the first questions that I ask the inspector: what code cycle is the project that you are working on, before I can answer any questions.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for raising your hand, Alexander, and posing that question. And that kind of brings up a good point that no question is a silly question, because the person next to you might have the same question. So again, feel free to raise your hand, and we can call on you to have that discussion. So thank you for that, Alexander. I don't see any other hands raised, Monica. So if you wouldn't mind, continue with the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So let's go with the example number 3. It reads, combination fire and smoke dampers are installed in the supply burner duct penetration through the wall of electrical room 1C26. And the answer would be if it's true or if it's false. One thing that we want to remind you is how to read the room number. So if you see 1C26, means number 1, that it is on the first floor. If it was 2C26, was going to be on the second floor. If it was 3C26, it was going to be third floor, and so on. So what do you need to look for is the room 1C26, which is first floor. If you cannot find, again, in the HVAC drawings, because the drawings are too busy like we did on the other example, start to look any other floor plan. In our mind, for advice is go to, if it's possible, to life safety drawings, because are the easiest to read. So you will go, in this case, LS 1.01. Even if you know the symbol for fire and smoke dampers, it doesn't hurt to look the legend and confirm that. So go to the HVAC schedule M0.01. You find the HVAC legend. Look for the combination for fire and smoke damper, and that is the symbol. So now that you know the room, now that you know the symbol, you go to the mechanical room and you need to verify if it's there or not. If it's there, it's true. If it's not there, it's false. Since that is there, the answer is true. Any question on this? Raise your hand.
Yeah, anyone have a question, feel free to raise your hand or use that email address that we gave you That's a direct email address to the Inspection Services Unit. If you have a question about the presentation today or any other questions regarding how to certify, how to take the exam, or if you want to appoint someone who you think might be interested in becoming an IOR or Inspector of Record and they don't know where to start, feel free to send them our way. We'd be happy to have that conversation with them. So I'm looking through the list of names one more time, looking for a raised hand, and I don't see anything yet. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Monica to proceed with the next section of the presentation. Monica?
Yes.
Before Monica start, I have been in the field for a little over 20 years, going on 25, and it's unlikely that we will have fire life safety plans. However, architects is the discipline that is pretty much controlling the set of documents, and usually, or I would say not usually, always the architectural drawing will have the room numbers, and the other disciplines are unlikely to have the room numbers. And it's just due to the fact that there are too much information to be shown, and even if the room numbers are shown, it will not be able to read them because structural drawings are framing plans, right? Just too much lines. And same thing for MEP, it's line diagrams for electrical, circuits, lights, and then mechanical is all those ducting that you have seen on the drawings. So, and then is reflected ceiling plan, right? So if we are showing the room numbers, it will be very difficult and too much information shown on the drawings, and that's the reason that most other disciplines do not show the room numbers, and even if they do, it will be difficult to show them, and that's why navigation of different disciplines drawings is always required, and that's why we try to teach you and have you have this basic fundamental understanding of how to navigate a set of drawings.
Very good point, James. And yes, you need absolutely to be flexible. In this case, there is the life safety plans, but if there are not, then the next one that you need to look at for sure is the architectural, because architectural has different information that they provide, and there are drawings that are very easy to read, since the architectural provides also the room schedule. So for sure, in the architectural, one of the drawings has clear the room name and the room number. Absolutely, yes. Thank you, James. And one thing, if I may, in the end of this slides presentation, there is the email address. The email address that Cesar repeats if Cesar is going too fast or you're forgetting to write down. In the end of the slide of all this presentation, there is the email address.
Yeah, and if you're shy and you don't want to raise your hand, there's always that option that you can type your question into the go-to question box. So you have that option as well. We'd be happy to answer those questions. So, Monica, all yours.
Okay, so two more examples. Number 4, it reads, what is the specified flow at CHWP-1? So where can you find the chilled water information, the flow for chilled water information CHWP-1? So you should look into the pump schedule, and it is in the M0.01, like for the prior example. So on the pump schedule, look for the CHWP-1, and you find the GMP value. In this case, of course, is 495, and that is the answer. If there is any question, this one was probably straightforward, but if there is any question, raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. I don't see any hands raised. Let me go through the list of names one more time. And I don't see any new questions typed into the question box on the go-to toolbox there. So, yeah, no names, no hands. Oh, Mr. Alexander, I see you have your hand up. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, harking back to what one of the other gentlemen asked, for the plan reading portion of the test, is it safe to assume that we're going to hit all architectural, all fire life safety, all plumbing, all together in blocks like that? Or is it going to be completely random where we have to go through the different disciplines?
It's not random, it's divided by discipline.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you.
So you have less panic, no worries.
Great, thank you for that question. Let me look at the list of names one more time for anyone who has any interest in raising your hand and asking a question. Again, we're here to help. No question is a silly question, so feel free to raise your hand. We're happy to have that discussion with you. So I don't see any more hands raised. So Monica, all yours if you'd like to continue.
Okay, this last example has different ways to arrive to the end. So I really like this example. It reads, supply air in lobby waiting room 1802 is blank CFM. So what do you have to look for? There are, again, different ways for you to find the answer. Whatever you choose, it doesn't matter, you will arrive anyway to the response. So let's say you want to look the room 1A02, which 1 means first floor. Again, if you cannot find in the mechanical drawings because they are too busy, look different place. We are still using life safety drawings, but again, you can use whatever you are able in order to read the room number. And in this case is LS 1.01. Remember, always to be flexible to look into the set of plans. So you can see the location 1A02, and you need to remember this. 1A02, even the question says, is lobby waiting room. Now that you know where the room is, go to the HVAC roof plan. That is an option, okay? So you go to the roof plan, which is the correspondent area above the 1802, and there you can see is a highlighted RTU-2. Knowing the RTU-2, the unit for 1802, you go to the schedule for RTU-2 and you find the supply air CFM information for the room 1A02. If you are going directly, another approach is to go directly to the RTU schedule and you wanted to find the room, you had to go through the overall schedule, find the dedicated area, and this is why it's important to read the question where it says lobby waiting room, because on the RTU schedule, it divides per dedicated area, and there is for RTU-2, the dedicated area is X-ray/waiting. So 1802 is lobby waiting room, and you will go again, doesn't matter how is your path of logic, you will arrive to RTU-2 schedule, you will find the specific room information, and then will be 1,400 CFM. If you have any question, raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. Any questions that you have about the presentation so far? We're almost done here, so if you're looking to ask a question, you're running out of time, so feel free to click that little hand icon next to your name. I'd like to go ahead and call on you if you have a question. If not, we can go ahead and proceed. Or if you'd like to go ahead and type that question into the question box, we can go ahead and read the question aloud and go ahead and answer it that way as well. So I'm going to go ahead and look through the list of names one more time to see if you have a question, raise your hand or anything. And I don't see anyone who has their hand raised. So Monica, if you'd like to keep going.
Yes, of course. Thank you. So what's going on now is we are going to get to you, let's say, to homework. Here there is homework 1, you will read, then there is homework 2. What is next? What is coming up? So it's up to you. It's not an obligation at all. You can submit to us on the slide, this one, where there is the OSHPD website. On this, you will send to us your response, which one you think is the right response of the homework 1 and homework 2. On Thursday, we are going through these two homework. We will go through, the presentation will be shorter because we will only go through these two homework versus the 5 example will be just 2. And like this is like an additional exercise. What also will happen, we are going to upload for Thursday additional practice questions for the for the plan, and up to you if you want to use or not. Is none of an obligation. All of this is to help you to get prepared for the exam. So it's non obligation, is a good advice, but is not an obligation. And so on Thursday, we are going through these two homework. And if you have any question about how the exam will be, which are the programs that are going to be used on March 30th, we are going to have a presentation for the programs from the process for the exam. And it will be, I believe, Cesar, is at 1 p.m. And if you didn't register yet for the March 30, please register because it helps you to mentally to get prepared for the exam without any panic.
That's right. So we want to go ahead and point you to our website as well. We have a lot of information on there, and we have a list of upcoming presentations, which we'll go over at the end of this webinar and give you that information. But for now, I want to go ahead and call on Abraham. I see you have your hand up. I'd like to unmute you. If you can unmute yourself so we can have a conversation. Abraham?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was pressing it. I pressed it by mistake because I'm trying to download the plans for the practice questions. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, no, that's quite all right. So, thank you for joining us, and thank you for those that have raised your hand to ask a question. The questions are invaluable. They are definitely help us understand where you're coming from and what kind of concerns and questions you may have. I'm looking through the list of names one more time to see if anyone else has their hand raised, and I'm also looking at the question box in the go-to toolbox to see if anyone else has asked a question and typed the question in, and I don't see any other questions. So if you do have a question that comes to mind after the presentation, feel free to use that email address, oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. Monica, is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's it. Please also remember next week we are going to present the electrical portion also, and the following week the fire life safety. These are ways to guide you how to read the plans, again, to be in less panic during the hours of the exam. So please, if you didn't register, and don't give up. Thank you.
Great. So thank you for sticking with us to the end. Again, that email address is oshpd.fddisu@oshpod.ca.gov. And if you haven't downloaded the handouts yet, you'll find that under the handout section of that go-to toolbox, you'll find today's presentation. You'll also find the tips from the experts, guide for working on projects under OSHPD's jurisdiction, and some more useful information in PDF form. If you haven't gone to our website, you'll find that the list of upcoming webinars for March 11th, the Mechanical Plumbing Part 2, March 16th, Electrical Part 1, March 18th, Electrical Part 2, March 23rd, Fire and Life Safety Part 1, March 25th, Fire and Life Safety Part 2, and then March 30th is going to be instruction of IOR exams, what to expect during the exam. Again, you'll find that information, and you can register for those webinars on our website under Building Safety and Finance, Forms, Training and Resources, Webinars. Scroll down all the way down to the Inspection Services Unit section, and you'll find the Hospital Inspector Certification Exam Preparation Plan Reading section. So again, thank you for joining us today. This concludes our presentation. We want to thank you for your interest in becoming a certified inspector of record with the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development. So until next time, be sure to stay healthy and stay safe.